Like we're sitting in the living room talking about our days on the water.
Now I can see you guys good now. Something happened. It all changed.
All right, we're live. What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to Deck Talk Podcast. Boy, we've got a show for you. And guys, if you don't know, I am Colin Burnett.
And I am Norman Lee. This episode is brought to you by Bruiser Baits, made for fishermen by fishermen. From soft plastics, jerk baits, crankbaits, flat out tungsten weights, and a whole lot more, with one goal in mind: to build the premium quality baits that are proven to put fish in your boat. Go to www.bruiserbaits.com and their sister company, www.bassaddictiongear.com. Make sure to use discount code DECktop10 at checkout for instant savings. Again, www.bruiserbaits.com and www.bassaddictiongear.com using discount code DECktop10.
Heck yeah, guys. Hey, today we've got a special episode. We got a good buddy of ours. We ran into Mr. Doug Reed from Floatzilla last year at ICAST.
Yeah.
And he's got a very interesting product that Norman and I have been fortunate enough to be able to use on Chickamauga and Nickajack. And so before we get, let's introduce Mr. Doug Reed. Doug, thanks for coming on here, brother.
What's going on, my man? Hey, Doug.
Hey, good to be here, guys. How
So,
you doing?
Doug, let's talk a little bit about. Let's kind of get on here and let's talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the Floatzilla because that is some very interesting products that it kind of when we first seen it, it was very interesting, and then it's a very good eye catcher, and how it works
Yeah.
it it is very phenomenal.
It's definitely a unique product.
Yeah, very so. But guys, before we do that, we want to let you know that today uh, we are actually doing a giveaway, and the giveaway is actually going to be 10 packs. We're doing two. We're going to have two winners, and uh, kind of went away. There you go. 10 packs to two people of the Floatzilla products, and Doug said it's his best sellers that he's got going on. So um, the I think I've got three or four different colors that I have used, which I've only got two left because that's all that's all I've been using them. And but that is a very good product. So Doug, let's talk a little bit about yourself. How did you get started into fishing?
Well, I'm 57 years old now, so. But back in my yearbook, high school, I said I was gonna go to the Bassmaster Classic. Well, I'm not there yet, I guess, but been fishing with my dad, just like everybody else. And, small club tournaments back in the Redman days, fished Redman. Moved on up. Now I'm fishing some opens and some FLWs, but pretty much put 100 days on the water
Yeah,
every year. So yeah, I'm pretty dedicated to the sport.
yeah. Well, and you kind of have to be. I mean, especially having a company um, to that's in the fishing industry, you kind of have to be dedicated to it. And just the design and stuff that you have come up with for Floatzilla, you can tell that it's you're very passionate about it. Of how you took the time to realize, because you was telling us uh, back at ICAST last year that um, that you've actually had to change things up last year's with the product that we got here, and I'll show it to you guys. This is let's see, this is what it looks like. And but you had to change the plastic or something like that on it at first to get it just right, and just the time that you took to figure out what it's going to do, what you got to do to get it right. You can tell the passion that you have in it. And
Yeah,
so,
well, Colin, what I wanted to do was make a product for myself. Really,
right,
wanted to make a product. I know I wanted it to be a floating product, something to float the tails of worms and float lizards up and all. I really wanted to make a floating product. And with my 3D printer about 3 or 4 years ago, I started making them. The problem was they were real rustic. They weren't what I wanted. It wasn't
right,
what I wanted to have. So I said, you know what? Why don't I go make a commercial product, put it for sale, and then I'll have something really I want too. The right
right,
colors,
right.
the right shapes. You know, and we came up with the original float tail, which is mostly for like stick worms, and we had the center.
Right.
We came up with the original stuff, but this year we came up with a fire tail.
Yeah,
So
and that
that's
fire tail, when you showed that to us at ICAST, and I looked at Norman, and I said, "That's legit. That's going because." And guys, what here? I've actually got a worm, and uh, that this is the product. All I've done is just cut it in half, or not in half, but just cut the tail of it off, just so it's the same diameter as what
Yeah.
the Floatzilla is, and all you do is just put it in and screw it in. That thing is not coming off. Look at that. It
Yeah.
is not coming off. You don't have to worry about if a bass comes up and chews that tail, that they're going to have to be munching on it to get it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's not going to come out of there. So
no,
the first thing I thought when I seen it was typically your screw ends. Every once in a while you lose them out of the
right,
worm. But that's the one thing that caught my eye when I first started using it is the way, Doug, you have these screw ends designed. You are not going to lose that. They are not going to come out of that worm. You're not going to lose the product when you're catching fish. That product is not going to come unbuckled from that worm. So it's not one of them things where, being that you're just screwing it in the soft plastic, you're going to lose it because you're not. It's not going to come out.
if it did come out, though, it would float to the surface.
Yeah.
This is one with the black one that's on the tail.
ah,
Actually,
yeah,
that's on the tail, and
yeah,
it's the same thing where you're screwing it in.
Now
If it did come out, I mean, it would come right to the surface anyway.
what's cool I think about the firetail, Doug, is that the firetail is actually goes on basically the very end. It's not going in the middle of the worm. It's actually going to go on the tail. So it would actually stand when your weight hits the bottom. It's actually going to stand the tail straight up in the air. Correct?
Yeah, well, so the concept is to make everything float,
Right.
and we started out with, like you said, the center ones, and the
Yeah.
ones on the one on the stick worms like this. But
Right.
when it came down to it, we needed something that went on trick worms, and that was that fire tail shape. So I'll show you what the new shape is. So we're developing as a company to make tails that go on every worm you have. So
Right.
this is the shape of the fire tail.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
That's more like a finesse worm tail. It's a lot smaller. Fire tail is a lot smaller. The fire tail is different too because it's soft to the touch. It's blown technology. So it's made the same way they make Coke bottles or water bottles. And they always say, well, in a water bottle, the cap has just as much plastic as the bottle. You ever hear that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing here. We didn't want much plastic involved. We wanted everything involved in the floating part. So that's why the fire tail is really our new technology. Like I said, it's going to come in 11 colors, and it's our next way. It's the way we're moving. It's the way we're moving forward. So we can make every fisherman their favorite plastic worm or their favorite bait have something that matches perfectly.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's which I've got. Let's see. I think I've only got like the watermelon and like a black. Let's see. Looks like black and silver. These two, but I had. Let's see. There it is. Um, I had another one that was more like a green pumpkin looking color. Um, also, and then there was wasn't there like a chartreuse
Yeah.
color that you have?
So what you're talking about is dome floats go on worms like this that have these curly tails.
Right.
You know, so you put it in the middle there. You cut this piece out in the middle, and you can keep the curly tail. You know.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, they're coming in all different colors. Like this float here is actually for a crawdad.
yeah,
It's actually a crawl. That right there is the head, and that's the crawl. That's the chartreuse color. Um, we make for the lizards. We make heads for the lizards too. So you can put it on a lizard. But this is classic. You know, black like a black
yeah,
Sanko stick bait with the blue tail. You can see it's real like almost like flashlight
yeah.
tail.
Yeah, and
That's a
that
classic.
will, I mean, and that right there, guys, that will catch fish anywhere you go. I guarantee it. Anywhere
And
you go,
yep.
It will definitely catch fish.
And that
So
color,
what?
I was
Go
gonna
ahead,
say what
Norm.
color you just showed right there, Doug, the black blue with that blue fire tail you had in it. For all of our South Florida guys down there that fish the glades, that fish Lake Okeechobee, Lake Estepoga, all of those areas down there in South Florida, that bait right there with that blue fire tail on that black blue color Senko style bait, 6-inch bruiser big stick. That is the bomb. That particular color setup with that blue fire tail in that bait. That's one of the more prolific colors down in South Florida too. So
Yeah. We got a question though from Bruce. Um do you think that that will work on a Ned rig?
So we have actual tail that matches the goby. We call it goby tail brown.
Right.
Okay, you can put it in a TRD, in a Sanko, in any kind of little Ned bait you have. And what's cool about it, here it is right here. Here's right here. What's cool about it is we matched a goby's tail. We color matched it. We came up with that right there. When
Heck
you
yeah.
screw that in, you screw that into a little Ned, you know, and then
Yeah.
it gets stuck in the rock, and all that thing, the only thing showing is that coming out of the rock. They really think it's a goby's tail. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll definitely work on a Ned rig, and it has great floatability. You're talking about a small worm. You're talking about a
Yeah.
really small worm, a small piece of worm, whatever, maybe a small
Right.
piece of a straight worm. It's really going to stick up. You know, it's really going
Yeah.
to stick up straight.
Uh, Michael Lindell says, Norman, the C rig, the big nasty with the Floatzilla on plastic.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. You know, and that's another thing too. Like with a Carolina rig, the biggest misconception people have of a Carolina rig, you know, that's how it's perceived. A lot of people how it's you know talked about with a lot of anglers is what happens is that weight, and then that bait's falling behind that weight. The bait hovering above the weight, well, that is actually kind of a false deal. When you're pulling or drifting or dragging a Carolina rig around, that bait is not hovering above that weight. That weight pulls that bait right down to the bottom, following along that behind that weight. But adding the Floatzilla to the middle of a bait that you're going to be throwing in a Carolina rig, and like the big nasty like Mike's talking about, put that in the middle there, which will actually give it extra buoyancy. As long as you're working that bait nice and slow and not pulling it too hard, where it's going to want to pull it down. Yeah, I can see right now where that Floatzilla on any bait that you're throwing on a Carolina rig is going to help the process of making that bait want to hang out above the weight for a lot longer period of time. So yeah, that's a good
which
point.
we actually, Norman, not to cut you off, but last year, right after we got them, we actually caught a few on. Was it? It wasn't plastic, but it was June
On
that
June.
we caught
Yeah,
on the Floatzilla.
exactly.
Um, that we were trying to just give it a shot and see what it's going to do, and then that gave us more of a want to be able to bring it up here and try the
Exactly.
Chickamauga and Nickajack
Exactly.
because
And
we caught
that's
fish on it.
yeah, and that's definitely going to want to help make that bait hover a lot easier for a lot longer period of time above the weight. Working it slow, of course, because anytime you work a Carolina rig and you're drifting fast with it, or working it fast, if you slow it down, it's going to allow that bait to hover above your weight easier than the bait itself just trying to hover above the hook. Because I don't care if you have a soft plastic and they say it's a floatable soft plastic. There's not a lot of soft plastics out there that I'm aware of that's going to float a 5/0 hook. Just sitting there hovering. But with that
Yeah,
Floatzilla in the bait, it is actually going to allow that bait just hovering there to float above that hook and not want to slowly drop. So yeah, I can see right now, and that's a good point, Mike. Yeah, it would work really well using it on Carolina rig baits to help that bait keep it suspended above as you're working it.
yeah. Now, Doug, let's talk a little bit about like iCast with you at the tank, because you wasn't by far the first person to go and throw in at that tank. Them fish had seen pretty much every lure that was out there by the time you got, and they really were not hitting anything until you got up there and started throwing this because it is a different presentation that they're seeing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a different presentation more than I came to the tank and I was looking at the tank and all those fish were about 4 feet above the bottom.
Right,
And
right,
I said, this is perfect for Floatzilla. I'm
yeah,
gonna put a Carolina rig in there. I'm gonna let that bait flow up. It's right in front of their face, and they're gonna not turn it down. Well, a lot of people are throwing their baits in the tank. They get right to the bottom, and now the fish has to commit. It has to
yeah,
go down to the bottom. You see it. You see it a lot with like the new technology with these you know surround Garmins and all like that. They're seeing the fish and they're watching them come down their bait. And that's the last tournament up there at wherever they were, where were they
St.
at?
Clair.
St. Clair. Let's say St. Clair, where Joey won. I should have named Joey won. They were talking about the first day. All the fish were just coming down on the bait. They throw it out there, and then watch the fish come down on the bait and eat it. But by the third or fourth day, they come down and they were kind of not really, eat
Yeah,
only 50% of them were hitting it. Well, that's what I noticed at ICAST. I said, if I can present this bait up to them, which I can because I got the clothes, they're gonna inhale it. And it was a field day,
yeah.
when I threw the Carolina rig in there, I just put it right in front of them. So.
Yeah, the only thing that you had to worry about then is making sure you hit the tank, right?
I missed the tank once. that was with the drop shot rig. The Carolina rig, I was doing pretty good. I was throwing this one with the Carolina rig. I
Oh
was
man.
throwing this little crawl, and then with the big float on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's
actually,
one thing, guys, that I actually about when we get off here, we're gonna have to be talking to Doug, and I'm gonna have to get me some of those, order them, and get some of those because that is one thing that, or whenever they get ready, Doug, I need to get me some of those to.
well, I'm gonna have to send you 2 packs of 10 anyway, right? For
Yeah,
the giveaway. So I guess I'll send a few more.
sounds
But
good.
what I'm also gonna send you is I'm gonna send you these. So this is the new one. And that's the new one on the same crawl. Now,
Wow.
even though it's a lot smaller, it's got the same floatability as that bigger one.
Really?
Yeah, so it has the same. If you put this, mathematically, it's floating the same. So now
Right.
you got a little smaller look. It's a shame it's only in black right now. So, Colin, I'm only going to send you black ones. If you wait 6 weeks, you'll get all the colors.
Right. Let's see. Let's see. I got to scroll through the everybody that's watching. We got about, let's see. little over 400 people watching right
Yeah.
now.
I was gonna say real quick, Colin, while you're scrolling through the comments to see what comments we have coming in so far. Do want to mention we're doing it. Actually, we're going to be giving away. All of our viewers today, we're going to be giving away 20 total packs. Is that right, Doug? Of the
Yeah.
Floatzillas. We're actually going to have two winners. Now we want you to get on again. We're interactive. Make sure you get your questions together. At the very end, Doug is actually going to pick two questions that was asked throughout the podcast, and whatever two questions he picks, whoever asks those questions is going to win a pretty cool Floatzilla prize pack that we will get out to you. So anyway, ask your questions, get your questions in, and you could win. You could win a couple. Uh, 10 packs and we're gonna have two winners too. So
Now, Brandon says, how big of a worm can you use on that or on the firetail?
So the firetail is going to come in. Going to come in two sizes. So I'm going to show you the small size, which is about. So this is the smallest size. It's about a half inch, and it'll float a trick worm that's like 5 inches or smaller. Now there's one that's going to be 3/4 of an inch, same shape, just a little bit longer, and it will float the biggest 8-inch trick worm you have. You know, so it's made. This firetail is mainly made for finesse worms, trick worms, guys who are, they've been drop shot. So we're making it in silver and white, so you can put it on the end of your drop shot, like any kind of fish bait, and keep your drop shot parallel.
awesome.
Yeah. Chris says, how do they hold up? I fish a river system with a bunch of rocks. How does the Floatzillas hold up with banging up against rocks?
So the older one is really durable. The older floats are real durable. I don't think you have any problem at all. The only time I've ever lost any of these older ones is when the whole Carolina rig came off. They never really broke or anything like that. The newer one is just soft to the touch. It's like I said, it'll never crack. It's not that kind of deal. It'd be a lifetime if you keep taking. If you don't lose the bait, you're gonna have it for a lifetime. If you don't lose the bait, you're gonna have it for a lifetime.
And Michael Lindell says, do you have a rattle Floatzilla, or is that a future idea?
So we came up with a couple of different things as we were coming up with this. One was a chamber that held scent. It was like a hole in the float, okay? And rattling was one of the things we came up with. But through the process, we're like, we have to make it so big to make a rattle because rattles are heavy.
Right.
Glass. We were trying to use a glass rattle on it. We had to make it so big that it was just outside the form what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So there won't be a rattle. There won't be a rattle. But if you do put a rattle in the bait, you can put the rattle in the head of the bait where the hook is, and then have the float on the back. But we're trying to stay in the float direction. So that's why
Kind of take away from what the product's actually designed for is to keep the bait floating if you add weight to it.
Right. So like I said, when it's floating like that, if you put a rattle in, it would sink, say. But if you put a rattle in the head of your worm, that would be the back and forth. That would be something to do.
Yeah.
And Bruce has another question. Says, so with the firetail on, does it make the fall slow? Does it make it fall slower, or does it just benefit just with the tail just as it's on the bottom?
So we had a couple people just put them weightless completely, just no hook, just a hook and there's a firetail on, and it's micro slow. Matter of fact, sometimes it's actually floating. So it's on the surface, not working. So it really depends on the worm. It really depends on the worm you have. But if you have, say, a 6-inch worm with a small firetail on it, it's going to barely fall to the bottom if you just have a hook. You have no weight.
Yeah.
No weight at all.
Let's see. Norman, you got any questions? Because I'm gonna scroll through here again and
One thing though I will say is about the weight thing. It actually adds weight to the worm for throwing.
yeah,
But then when it gets there, when it gets to the point where it's actually in the water, it slows the fall. So it's like a two-part thing with the weight there. Yeah,
right.
it actually it adds weight to the bait, so you can really throw it. You can really heat them. As far as
Now,
fall.
how about the colors, Doug? You got quite a few colors that actually color matches a lot of your common bait colors. Uh,
We do, Norman, but I think we're going to do better in about 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We have some good colors. Joey's the Princess wanted like a morning dawn one. So we're
yeah,
coming up with a pink. We really didn't have like a white with any flake in it for the any kind of drop shot worm. We're coming up
yeah,
with that. We wanted a really good green pumpkin. Well, our green pumpkin really, we had the brown goby, but it wasn't really green pumpkin. We're coming up with that. Um, and then for that center, we throw a lot of these. We throw a lot of these worms in Florida, and a lot of these swim worms for bass. We throw a lot of these swim worms for these
yeah,
tails, and we
yeah,
didn't have a June bug. And we throw a lot of June bug worms like that. Matter of fact, that's my go-to. One of my go-tos in Florida is June bug, like a big long worm with a curly tail. And
yeah,
so we're gonna have a June bug too.
yeah.
So
Now
yeah,
that
our colors are good, but I think they can be better. Yeah.
yeah, that brown goby, that's actually almost like a not a green pumpkin, but a pumpkin seed. The color of that brown goby.
Yeah, it's more like a
Yeah.
pumpkin seed. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Let's see. I think you kind of answered it. Uh, Chris says, "Do you think that it will work on a drop shot?" Which you kind of said that you got something that's coming out, right?
Yeah, I
With
don't think the first bait would work on anything but like more like stick worms and like I said, the center one works on these swim worms and all, but the new one, the firetail. Keep
yeah,
saying that word over and over again, the firetail. Uh, that's going to really work on the drop shots. It's going to Demiki rigging. When you
yeah,
Demiki rig and you're always worried about where that bait is, when you set it up right, you can just probably put it in the water. You can tell it's always going to be. It's not going to be leaning down.
Oh,
It's
the
good that
more you
tail. A lot of guys say, "Oh, I got to set it on the hook just right when I'm Demiki rigging so I can get it flat because this fish want it parallel to the bottom." Well, that new tail is going to work for that. You know,
yeah.
the new tail is really going to work for that.
So, and another thing is I kind of like thinking outside the box, Doug. When I'm fishing, I've come up with some crazy ideas that actually has worked, and I uh, I actually took a swim bait, like oh crap, one of like the ribbed swim baits, and I put one of these in the ribbed swim bait because I wanted the tail to kind of be to float up a little bit when uh, and because I was noticing around like the shad spawned around here, the fish don't swim. They're not swimming flat like this. Their tail is a little up higher. So during the shad spawn here, I have put this on the rib swim bait and to where it has that tail on it. And that was I guess that's a a big hint tip for the day with this that it's not just used for just worms. You can put it on anything and it works and it floats it to how. Um, and I don't know why. Norman and I we've talked about why during the shad spawn that they're kind of swimming like this instead of swimming normally like how you see they're kind of swimming with their tail up. And once able to replicate that, then we were getting more bites off of it.
yeah.
Yeah, we had some people with tubes also. They said, "Oh, we get the earplugs, but they always fill up with water, and they after an hour or so they're worthless."
Right.
They put them in the tubes. Well, I said, "This is the perfect thing. Just screw it inside the tube. Doesn't
Yep.
matter what color
No,
float
it
you have.
don't matter
You just
then.
put it inside the tube right behind your weight, and screw it into your plastic, and it's in there forever. It's never going to fill up with water, or it's going to kick your tube up a little bit. Almost
Yeah.
like a Ned rig. Your tube can be a Ned."
Yeah,
You know,
that would be dangerous on Nickajack in our river. Excuse me,
Yeah.
in our river system that we got because we're through Chattanooga, which I think you told us that you fished Chickamauga before and stuff like that, but it's all part of the Tennessee River. And but Nickajack, the northern part of Nickajack, is more of a river system, and but here we don't have a lot of people using those tubes. But that would be something that is one, they don't see it, and then having it to where you can get it to float also.
Yeah.
and you don't have much eelgrass in your rivers, though, right? Not much eelgrass, right?
It's mainly hydrilla.
Yeah.
Maybe not though.
Yeah. Michael Wendell says it should work on saltwater baits. Two, does it come in a glow in the dark option?
So we're working with a contractor now, a UV contractor, and it'll be UV. It'll be UV probably in 8 weeks. But yes, all our baits they'll be UV. I think it's $1.19 more a
Yeah.
pack. That's how it came out to be. Yeah, but definitely
So,
that's the problem about UV right now. It's patented in the fishing world, so you have to actually work with somebody who has the patent. And so
right.
is Floatzilla. But yeah, so that's what we're working with. We're working with the guy with the UV patent, and definitely gonna have a UV model out there. Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, but Floatzilla is not really. I mean, you've caught many different species of fish using the Floatzilla too, though, with being down there in Florida and stuff like that. Like I know, like we've caught smallmouth, largemouth. We've caught spotted bass. We've caught monster catfish on it. The only thing that I think that we have not caught on it is a gar up here. And so, but it's not just made. I guess what I'm saying, it's not just made for just the bass angler because we've got a lot of people that just kind of like they'll do creek fishing and they'll do. They'll do rivers and ponds and stuff like that. That this will actually work for them also too, right?
No, I don't think Floatzilla is really a bait. I think it's more
Right.
a theory. It's a theory. So we're
Right.
trying to make all these floats, all these contraptions that go on plastics. You know what I mean? To catch anything. We're just trying to. If we know we float their tails or float their heads, or they'll be more lifelike in the water because the
Yeah.
water movement, like you said, river systems, the water moving them around, floating is a lot better than tumbling
Yeah.
them on the ground. Just like tumbling down the river. You want them kind of floating and kind of being natural. So yeah, I think any species is going to like something that's floating
Yeah.
versus something. Yeah.
Anytime you use a soft plastic, or anytime you're using a worm or soft plastic in general, you can utilize a Floatzilla. No matter if you're fishing a creek, a river, lake, even saltwater. If you're using soft plastic baits in saltwater, uh, wherever you use soft plastic, you should be able to utilize a Floatzilla and actually improve on your soft plastic by getting it up further up in the strike zone by the way it kind of helps float the bait.
And if you just want color, say you want a chartreuse tail or you want a blue tail, if it's not, you're not even worried about the floatability. You can just, I mean, there's pens out there, there's dyes, there's dips, but do they really give you that vibrant color? No.
Yeah.
I mean, in salt water, that vibrant color right there, I think would definitely get you a few more strikes.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, let's see. Well, I'm looking again. Doug, can you tell people? Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Uh, where they can go to order some?
Just shopfloatzilla.com. You go shop Floatzilla.com, Shopify. You'll go right to the website and you can order them. That's probably the best way. You know, we're in Tackle Warehouse. Same pricing pretty much. I think we're in Walmart, but it's through their we direct ship through Walmart, so pricing will probably be higher. You know, but Shopify is probably the best way to go, or Tackle Warehouse right now.
Yeah. Uh, let's see. So can you use any of the Floatzillas during a tournament?
Well, I guess it's kind of like cheating, but they haven't outlawed it yet. So
Right.
I think float's cheating, but like I said, it's not like you're having multiple hooks or they get away from like all these Alabama rigs and stuff like that. They haven't outlawed it yet,
Well,
but I said it's new, so who
I'll
knows?
answer that question for you there, Colin. Being around the tournament scene pretty much for the last 25 years, yeah, there's no issue if you're a tournament angler, no matter what level you're fishing, whether you're fishing your local club level, or whether you're fishing your BFLs, or whether you're fishing on any of the pro circuits. As of now, yeah, you could use the Floatzilla. There's nothing in the rule books that say you can't. You could actually take any soft plastic and alter it as long as you are not adding the an appropriate amount of hooks to it. So yeah, there's nothing against any of the rule books, no matter what level you're fishing. Yeah, you definitely could use that in a tournament.
Let's see. So Doug, have you what? Because you're in Southern Florida, right?
Central, mid,
Central,
Kissimmee,
right?
Kiss right near the park. Yeah.
So, now how did the like when you're product testing this? Uh, was were you surprised of like how well? I know you said that the first one that you done like with the 3D printing and stuff, it didn't fit what you really were wanting to. But as you progressed, did was the fish reacting to it kind of like how you were imagining and thinking that it was going to go, or is it better than really what you thought that it could have been?
So the Florida test really came down to the bed fishing. You go down there, everybody goes down there when the weather's bad up north. I actually live in New Jersey. I just have a house in Florida. So,
Oh, okay. That's
uh,
that's right. I remember you saying that.
yeah. So we go down there, January, February, and the fish are on the beds. And the idea is there is, hey, what's going to make them really react? If it's sitting in a lot of times when they're sitting in the bed and it didn't have the float on it, they would just ignore it. But when it had the float on it, they really went after it.
Yeah.
And like I said, multiple times I had two people in the boat, one with the Floatzilla, one without it, throwing at beds, and the float definitely made a difference. So that's the Florida. That was really the Florida test. And then we actually went back to Florida for ICAST, and it was hot. It was summertime, and we put the Floatzilla to a test there, and that was we were filling the swim worm above the hydrilla, and every time you stopped it, it would just dive through the hydrilla and get lost, and the fish didn't really see it. They were like positioned on the top of it. But when we
Yeah.
put the float, matter of fact, the floats that you have, and we put them on those big swim worms with light weights, we could really launch them out there and reel them in. And when we stopped it, it would stop on top of the hydrilla almost, just long enough for the fish to pick it up. And then you could, if it didn't, you just keep swimming it back to the boat. And I think we got third in that tournament, in the ICAST tournament, and in the summertime. We didn't ever really fish there in the summertime, but I think
Right.
it really showed that floating works. Florida is a great clear water environment. You know, a lot of clear water. It's a little stained, but floating works. And when fish are in clear water environments, they notice little things, little variables, and
Yeah.
they really notice floating. They notice that a lot.
Yeah, and that's like what, and I was thinking about this also with that firetail, and you hit it just then about bed fishing. Um, but that firetail with it standing up, and which people really doesn't until they actually see it in the water and stuff like that. I might do, what I'll do is when I get some, I'm going to. I'll put it in an aquarium and have it floating, and I'll do a little video with it to show people how it actually stands up. But I mean, with it standing up, and like the bass will come up to it, and just the movement that the bass coming up to it is pushing enough water that it's going to move it to where how like when you're on the bed, you kind of just want to just kind of just tick 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 just a little bit because you want it to shake. You really with that, you're really not going to have to do too much of
You
the
don't want to move
ticking.
your rod at all because every time you try to move your rod, you're moving the bait out of the bed. You want to
Right,
get it in the bed and have it just kind of move like just kind of move around from the fins of the bass, making it move around.
right,
You don't want to touch it because if you every time you try to move it, you're going to have to bring it out of the bed. You know, you're
exactly.
every little jar you do. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's one of the key. That's key in Florida. That's
Yeah,
the key
yeah,
to the bed fishing. Not that it doesn't catch the smallmouths too.
yeah,
I mean, smallmouths are a lot easier to catch on the beds than, say, a Florida largemouth. You might spend an hour on a Florida largemouth where, a smallmouth eats them up. But
right.
after that smallmouth has seen 3 or 4 baits because he's on the bed and people keep going by and taking him off and putting him back, they get a little bit weary. And
Yeah,
I think floating might help you there. Definitely floating might help you with the
yeah,
small.
exactly. Yeah, because the longer that you can keep that on the bed, the better off you are because it's just going to piss them off. And then they're going, once they pick it up, then they're just going to pick it up and try to move it. But most of the time, when they pick it up and try to move it, because once it stays there, I've noticed like their temperament and stuff is like if it's in there quickly and stuff, they'll just kind of help move it, get it off real quick. But if it stays, if you can keep it on that bed long enough, that they're going to get pissed off, and that's when they're really going to grab it and take it. And then when they grab it, that's when you have the bed fish.
yeah.
But let's see. Michael Lindell has another question. He says, if a bait company does not make a top water bait and you have to use their product, will the soft plastic stay towards the surface with no weight, or does it counter just the hook?
So trick worms, say you're using want to use a trick worm, they kind of with the hook, they kind of fall a little below you know, they fall back a foot or so. Now,
Right.
if you put the plastic uh, on the back, that's one way you keep that trick worm up. But if you go to some of our videos, we're using the lizard head. So our lizard head comes with a hook. It's it's similar to this, but it has a hook on it. I don't have any with me right here, but what that does is you can put that behind a soft plastic. You can see some of our videos, definitely on Instagram. A lot of our videos are on there on Floatzilla Instagram. Um, you can see them. Yeah, you can definitely just reel them in and reel any soft plastic. You can make a lizard on the surface. You can make, you can put that in front of a regular worm and it will look like a snake because it has a big head. Yeah.
Right.
So definitely, it would definitely keep it on the surface.
Yeah.
Definitely keep it on the surface.
Now, how long has Floatzilla been around?
So we debuted when we first saw you guys in ICAST last year,
Right.
and we actually didn't have the product then. So
Yeah,
the
I remember.
second day,
Yeah.
it finally came in the mail. So that's how but we wanted to go to that show. We wanted to learn about the fishing business. I'm really not a fisherman. I'm a fisherman. I'm not in the business of fishing. You know what I mean? I'm really a landscaper by trade, actually. so, um, but over the last year, we really learned about the fishing business and what people want. We have 3 pros on staff. Joey's the Princess, Brian New, and Brian Schmidt, and they're really giving us a lot of information. And they're really the backbone of the Firetail. They wanted. They said you have to make things that look like 99% of the baits that are out there. That's where we came up with the Firetail. So we've been in
Right.
business for like a full year, because I mean we're only about a month out of ICAST now, right?
Yeah.
Right, we're about a month out. So a full whole year. Uh, our 5 year plan is to have a lot of the baits that people are throwing, a good percent of them, fit. A Floatzilla will fit most of the baits you have.
Yeah.
Just for now,
That's
it's easy.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, and just like what you're saying, I mean, you're not trying to, you're not creating a bait. You're just creating or making the bait just float. And, uh, and which Norman and I, which we've done, we haven't done a video this year. We've just been so busy with Floatzilla. We done a video last year, guys. If you want to check it out on our YouTube channel, with us using the Floatzilla on Chickamauga, and I think what we ended up that day, I think we caught about 12 on it. We had to cut the day short because we had a thunderstorm come blow up on us. But I think the biggest one we caught was 6.5. But I mean, we were catching average pounds that we were catching on Chickamauga with this was on that day was average about 4.5, 5 pounds. But but we were using it uh, mainly using it for a Carolina rig.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but let's see. We got another question. Can you use the crawdad with that for flipping by screwing that into the face of the crawdad? Will it make the crawdad stand up? That's John Pate, Norman. He came in a little later than after you already showed that, Doug.
Okay. So yeah, we're talking about this bait here. Let's see here. We're talking about this crawl right here, and putting the big float in it like this. And you could definitely put a Ned head on there, or you could put a jig head on there. You know, black and blue. We have this in blue. We have this in like a really blue, vibrant blue, and a black and blue jig. Flip it in the brush. It's going to make it stand up. It's going to make it
Yeah,
stand up. Now your jigs, a lot of jigs stand up anyway because it's one flip. It's gonna, you flip it and boom, it stands up pretty good. They have certain jigs don't roll over, but now you flip it, it stands up, and now you're dragging it a little bit. It's going to stay up. It's not going to go sideways. You know, the hook on a jig or a hook on a worm makes the bait kind of go sideways and looks unnatural, sliding back to the boat. But if it's floating, it's not sliding back that way. The hook's not in the way, and it's kind of coming back in the boat a little more natural. It's only a foot, maybe, or 2 feet that you're dragging it, but if it's sideways like that on the bottom, I think it's unnatural looking.
Yeah.
yeah,
Now you're talking about flipping and using it to help stand creature bait up or whatever type of bait you're flipping. 95% of your flipping fish, when you are flipping, normally hits it on the way down. But when you have that lethargic bite, when they're just not wanting to eat, and when it does hit the bottom, and typically you're gonna twitch it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times before you bring it back and reflip it. You're trying to entice that fish that might not hit it on the way down, that she might still be staring at it. It's giving it more time to stare at it and study that bait, but with that fire tail on the back side of your flipping bait, which is allowing that bait to stand up, where that tail is wanting to, if you just butt the butt of your rod without moving your rod tip, you don't want to move the bait, but just have that tail where it stands up, but it's actually being able to twitch and waver there, might probably help enhance that bite of that fish that might be staring at it, that might not eat it on the way by.
yeah,
Yeah, Norman. Another thing is when you're punching, you can actually put the punch weight up. You can even do this in heavy brush. You put the punch weight up your line, say 12 inches, put bobber stops on both sides, And now your bait's floating. So you punch through that heavy cover, and now instead of it going down to the bottom, maybe there's sludge on the bottom or something where
Right, right, right.
it's floating right behind that punch weight. They're picking it up.
Exactly.
They're picking it up. It's right there. Sometimes when you're punching through a mat, there's only about 2 foot of water underneath of it. You
Right.
can that fish is 1 foot off the bottom. If you could have a 1 foot leader, man, you're
Yeah.
right in his face.
Exactly.
Right in his face. It's not disappearing.
Exactly.
To the bottom.
And that kind of goes back to like what you were talking um, about like when you was at ICAST at the tank, you was able to get it to where it was you were catching the fish because you were putting it right there. They were not having to commit going down to the bait. You brought the bait to them with it.
Right. So, like I said, Floatzilla is not a bait. It's an actual theory. It's like netting or it's like drop shotting. It's going to be, hey, what kind of floats you have in your box? Because
Yeah.
float, you can float you should be able to float everything. Or,
Yeah.
it's more of a theory than an actual bait. You know?
Yeah. So we got two more questions. John Pate says that they come in different sizes, which, and again, he's coming. And with this other Jamie, he just came on and he said, and he wants to see if we can show it again because he just now got on here. So,
Okay.
Jamie, this one here, I showed you after ICAST last year. This is the bait that, or not the bait, but the float that I had showed you last year when we got back from ICAST. But Doug and them have got a new one. It's called the Firetail, and it will actually go on the end of pretty much what a crawl. It'll go on Cinco or anything, just to kind of, and it will.
Senko
Yeah,
style bait.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think really we made this, even though you didn't take this from the show, we made these kind of for like the Senko type. This is original. For the
yeah,
Senko. But now the Firetail we made because it's more pointed for more like the finesse baits and all like that. So yeah, they come in. Well, we have this one right here in 2 sizes. Okay, this is about more than a half inch, and then we have it in an inch, and then we have this one that's in 2 sizes, and it's a half inch and 3/4 inch. So we have four different size tails, just tails alone. Yep, and they definitely fit on most of your baits. The thing about the Firetail, like we were talking about earlier, it's made with blown technology, so they blow in. They don't mold it. It's not mold technology, so it's a lot smaller for its floatability. A lot
right.
smaller.
Uh, we got Brian. He said that he lives up towards the Great Lakes, and he said that would work good. That Goby one would work good when the smallmouths are chewing on the gobies. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially when the gobies they're in their homes or about all around them rocks. Basically, what they do to avoid the smallmouths is they go in the rocks and their tails are out. Smallmouths go in there and they suck them out of the rocks. You know, like you sucking a clam out of a clamshell. That's what they do. That's what those smallies are all about. And they see that tail. It's definitely it's a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
You know, catch them.
John Pate says, "How many are in a pack?"
There's 4 in a pack. There's 4 in a pack, except for the lizards, because they come with a hook. The lizard heads come with a hook. There's only 2 in a pack. Yeah, 4 in a pack, and there's 2 in a pack.
So, guys, that is. I know I'm excited about getting that Firetail. That Norman, I think we're going to be able to tear some fish up on that.
I think we're going to get some jaws.
Especially because I don't have any of them here. With putting them on, we tie. Let's see. I might actually have some.
While he's looking for that, Doug, one more time, real quick. Tell all of our viewers your website and where they could go to actually get the product again.
So Floatzilla.com, Shopify, and like I said, Tackle Warehouse definitely has them, and that's probably the best two places to get them right now.
Yeah.
Price wise, that's the best way to get them in your hand.
Yeah, make sure to go to floatzilla.com, Spotify, and get this bait. Try it, and trust me, we've used it myself and Colin. Guarantee it does work, just like Doug's telling you. But yeah, it's something you definitely want to check out.
Yeah. I don't have any. All I got is just painted heads. But we're definitely going to, guys. We're going to, once we get them in our hands, we're going to do a video with Norman and myself with the Chat Town lures, the micro jigs,
Yeah.
and we're going to put on a show for y'all guys with it. So we, again, Norman and I, we thoroughly enjoyed using this product. We've been able to use it in different situations, and we have we've always, excuse me, been able to catch fish uh, with it. And so, and you got to think there's not too many people, especially up in our area, that that is throwing this, throwing to where they have a bait that actually floats. So. We've been able to do pretty good with using it up here. So for all the guys that are up this way, we've got. I know just seeing the people that, because right now we've got over 600 people on, Doug. Um, but we've had them from all over the United States, from uh, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. We've had Scotland and Ireland, and Australia that we've had people watching this. So, but guys, if I know that this is a product that you do need to have in the tackle box and take uh, full advantage of, and that's going to catch you some fish.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Norman, you got anything?
Yeah. Now, kind of gonna backtrack a little bit, Doug, real quick, from the actual product itself. But um, when you first started getting interested in the sport of fishing, now not really the business end of it, as far as with Floatzilla and all, but as you were growing up, really, falling in love with the sport of fishing, did you have any mentors or any people or anybody that you actually looked up to? Could have been another fisherman or a family member. Who did you look up to growing up that kind of gave you inspiration to want to be a fisherman and want to fish?
What's crazy, I didn't even have a Bassmaster magazine when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. But my friend did. And we went fishing one day, out in my canoe, and he said, "Oh, this was in Bassmasters the other day, and it was rubber worm with this big 5.0 hook in it, Texas free." And I said, "That's crazy looking. There ain't no bass, there ain't no fish in the world gonna eat that thing." He went out there and proceeded to catch fish all day long, and sure he gave me some. And I said, "Man, I'm gonna have to get that Bassmaster."
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get that magazine. I'm missing out. And bass has progressed, through the years, games. But if I was to say anything, that magazine, the people it represented back in the day, and who it now represents today, it definitely put me on a path to, loving fishing. Now, being being in the fishing business, and I'm in it full feet, both feet in. Right now.
It's funny you say that about your buddy looking in a Bassmaster magazine way back then, and seeing them throwing a big 5/0 hook with a big bait attached to it. when we were down in Florida, when we actually got a chance to go out, we did a little bit of filming on Lake Estapoga. We had a buddy of ours, which he's a crappie. He's actually a crappie guide, Lake Placid freshwater chartering guide, Dennis Crenshaw, the best crappie guy down there in the state of Florida. But anyway, he got a chance to go out with us in the boat. And, he didn't fish much, but he just sat with us and watched. And I just lost my screen. But
You're good.
anyway, I lost my screen on the screen, but I guess you could still see me. But
Yeah.
anyway, we were actually flipping big 5/0 super line hooks because you use 65-pound braid down there in that heavy cover in Lake Estapoga. And we were flipping 6-inch big sticks with the 5/0 big superline hooks. And he thought that was the coolest thing in the world. First thing he asked us was, "You're going to catch a bass on that big bait with that big hook?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, we use bigger than this. But and that was coming from somebody that's used to jerking crappie all day with little crappie jigs and crappie hooks. So taking him out kind of out of his element, that just caught me as pretty cool or pretty funny. That when he first seen the baits we were using, of course, we're targeting. And he just thought that was pretty cool or weird to him that we were throwing big ass 5/0 hooks on a big 6-inch fat bruiser big stick. And I just thought that was kind of funny, and that's coming from somebody that's used to throwing little bitty crappie jigs.
Yeah. Now, John Pate said, one more question. How much do they cost, and are there different costs? Are and are they different costs with the lizard?
No, we priced them out. They're $7.95. That's what Tackle Warehouse. That's what Shopify. That's what I sell it for. Um, what we priced them out, we put less baits in the pack, so it all stay pretty much at the same price. That's what we try to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty good price. And in
Yeah.
general, like I said, it could be a life. You might never have to buy another pack if you kept a life knowledge. It's really,
No.
they're not going to break. They're not going to
No.
fall off. They're not going to go away. You know.
We got Jerry Burchard on. What's up, Jerry?
So Jerry,
He just came on here. And then, we got Presley.
Presley
I guess
on?
it might be his dad. Said Doug gave my son some. Let's see. Gave my son some in the parking lot at the Harris Chains in Florida. Super nice guy. Which we're actually going to have Presley on.
He's gonna be in the studio next week.
Yeah, in the studio. So is he? I gotta message him. So hopefully that's still good to go. If not, we can do it remote. But yeah, we've had these, and these have been used, and we haven't had any issues. The only reason why that I had another pack, but the only reason why I don't have that other pack is because other people took them from me.
Yeah.
I should have gave you guys a few more packs.
Another thing I'll point out too about the screw and centering pins, and I'll repeat the centering pins. Most of your screw-ins you see today, now you could actually buy centering pins that you could replace, but anytime you buy like a swim bait hook or any type of a something or other, you buy pre-packaged that screws in the center or in the bait to hold like a hook, like your swim bait hooks. Very seldom are you going to find a centering pin in it. Well, that's one of the things I'll point out too about the Floatzilla is with your screw in you have on each side of it, you actually have the centering pin, which is a big deal because that centering pin allows you to be able to actually hit the center of that bait and get it perfect where it screws in the center without having to because without that centering pin, and there's a lot of different companies that offer the screw ins, but there's no centering pin. So that centering pin's a big deal to be able to allow it to be able to get that perfectly centered with the bait. So when you're screwing it in, it actually makes it look like one bait once it's together. Where it actually, if it is even when you match the color, you really can't tell in a lot of cases that it's actually anything altered with the bait.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
centering
No,
pin's a big
another thing
deal
is
to
if
be
it's
able
a
to
little
center.
crooked. See, if it's a little crooked
Yeah,
because of that centering pin, it's a little better. You can bend it and you keep working it
exactly.
a little bit. You can make it perfectly straight
Yeah,
with the bait.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it
That's
allows
key.
you. Exactly, and it allows you to be able to actually center it on that soft plastic as you're starting to screw it in. Where without that centering pin, it's going to be very hard to get it perfectly centered.
Yeah. We actually got we had Presley's dad on, and now we've got Presley on, and he says, "What's up, guys?"
What's
So
that,
what's up,
Presley?
Presley? Uh,
Tell everybody who Presley is, Colin.
Presley is I've met Presley about about a year and a half ago on Chickamauga. He was fishing um, the high school state championship. I believe that's what it was on Chickamauga. I went there to watch the weigh in. Um, he was fishing with another buddy that of mine that we fished against, and he was fishing with him in the high school, and I got to meet him. But the thing that intrigued me about Presley is the fact that he fishes for Mount Juliet fishing team, and I grew up. I was born and raised in Mount Juliet, so that kind of drew me to be able to kind of start watching what he's doing and just seeing what he's done um, here the past year. This year he had a phenomenal year, um, tearing them up in the high school rankings. So. But we enjoy watching him. But my dad, Doug, says to tell you hi and it's good to see you again. He didn't get to come to ICAST with us this year, but so we my brother-in-law is on and he always asks this question, Doug. So I've got to ask it. And if you've seen my brother-in-law, you would understand why he asked this question. His question is, what is your go-to snack in a boat?
My go-to snack in the boat.
Yeah,
Well, I would say Slim Jim.
I'm
Slim
right
Jim.
there with you.
I try to keep it keto.
Yeah,
So I can
yeah,
fit in the boat.
yeah. So we've had you on here an hour and 7 minutes, Doug, and we don't want to keep you too much longer. So we'll try to start wrapping this up. If you got any more questions, we are doing a giveaway. So, and we're giving away two people are going to get 10 packs of the Floatzilla. And actually, here in a minute, Doug's going to pick the two questions. So if you got any last minute questions you want to ask him, make sure you hurry up and let's get them in to where we can go on and try to start wrapping this up.
Doug's going to pick two questions out of all the questions that was asked, and two people that asked some questions is going to win a pretty
Yeah.
cool Floatzilla prize pack.
So, but with that being said, you got to ask a question to be able to enter uh, into the drawing for this. Or I guess it's a draw. I mean, it's for the to be able to get the prize pack
Yeah.
or the giveaway. But we also want y'all to go to excuse me, go to YouTube on the Deck Talk podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to grow that channel. Um, let's see. Lanham's Farm. So Presley's dad says, "What do you recommend for the first timer using the Floatzilla for the first time to get some confidence?"
So it really depends on what body of water they're fishing. But I think our tails that fit on the stick worms. I mean, these stick worms, they catch fish no matter what, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you just throw them out there, right? But I think our tails. I mean, this is really our go-to. Matter of fact, it's the first thing I came up with. Yeah, I wanted this to stick up like this, like I said, in Florida on those beds, or in any. Sometimes you have little eelgrass. Eelgrass starts coming up, and it's only about 2 or 3 inches, and your bait was fall down in there. So I think the stick worm, this right here, that's our original tail. It's the mini. You
Yeah.
know, I like it with the black worm and the blue tail. I think that's a go-to. I mean, chartreuse can't hurt either. But
No,
if
no.
you're just throwing it out there, if you want to throw a wacky, put a Ned weight in the one end and just throw a wacky in the middle. I mean that's going to catch a fish.
Yeah.
That's going to catch a fish.
And he also says, "What is your vision for Floatzilla as far as new products?"
So that's a good question. That's probably one of the best questions today. That's going to be on my top five. So our vision is really to start matching these baits. Matching everything out there, whether it's a Zoom fluke, or it's a man's worm or whatever it is. We want to match these baits. So it's invisible. You're throwing the same bait. You have a favorite bait. We want to match it. We're probably only 3 or 4% into that process. So we got a long way to go. We got a long way to go. And one of our new things is we float in everything. So we're an assembly company. We make things work better. So we make them float better too. So our new thing, and I think it's going to come out in a couple of years. We're in the process. Is we're going to make the best frog out there. We're going to make the best frog. That'll be one thing. We actually make the lure. We actually make the lure because right now there's a lot of good frogs out there, but we're trying to make the best frog there is.
There you go.
Jamie Jones says, "Have you used it on a Carolina rig setup?"
Yeah, I mean, I use something called a reed rig, which is similar to a Carolina rig. Plus, I use a Carolina rig. So what a reed rig is, it's a small bullet weight that's double pegged up your line. So it's really the same line. There's no swivel, you know. And I use all the worms with the tails, everything with that. And what that's doing is the weight is 2 or 3 feet away from the actual worm, and it's giving that natural floating presentation. That's probably the best way. Carolina rig is probably the best way to throw this. That's definitely a
Yeah.
top five question too. It's the best way to throw
Yeah.
this weight.
And Jamie, that is mainly how, when Norman and I have been out on Chickamauga and Nickajack, that is mainly how we are fishing it, is the Carolina rig.
Yeah.
So Jerry and Hunter Burchard said, "Do you make a trick worm type bait, or will you?"
So the firetail by Floatzilla is made for the trick worm tail. Brian Schmidt, like I said, he went to the class and got second. Got second with this shape right here in chartreuse. I'm trying to think. Missile, I think he was throwing kind of missile worm. But the missile worm comes with a rounder, type tail. It comes with a round type tail. So that's why we, where's it at?
It's more like this, like this. It's
Yeah,
how,
that's how the
yeah,
missile bait tail was. So we came up with this for Brian, not just Brian, of course, but you want to put his name on it. But we came up with this, so we make him look more natural. Now, is it the right color? It's black right now. If he was throwing black, but he was actually throwing green pumpkin with a little bit of green in it, a little green fleck. Well, we're going to have those colors. We're going to
yeah,
have those colors. So that's our program, is to make those tails fit and look exactly like the bait you're throwing. Unless you want to throw a chartreuse tail, we got that too.
yeah. So let's see. We'll we're going to ask the question to you, Doug, that we ask everybody. Let's see, and I'll let the final questions come in while you answer this question. Uh, So Norman, do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, hey, Doug. If you were to have one person on your boat, now that person could be passed away or still with us, one person fish with you for the day, who would that person be and why?
Well, this year, last year, during the Opens, I met Joey Sanchez. I met him at Hartwell, and I talked to him and I said, "Man, you just got it. I don't know what you got. I don't know what you're doing. I just like to talk to you all day long. I just want to talk to you and get some knowledge." And
Yeah.
I knew he'd be a success. I just by talking to the guy. Well, he's got 2 blue trophies now. It just happened on St. Clair.
Yeah,
And if I could, even though I'm a sponsor, I'm sponsoring him and everything like that, I never got a whole day to talk to him all day long. I'd really like to pick his brain and see what he's thinking,
awesome.
where he's going.
That's
Because
awesome.
I think if I could talk to a guy for a whole day, I could come up with another bait, another tail, another flute. It would work because I would get it out of him. Where
Yeah.
what he needs.
That's
Yeah, he's a
awesome.
guy. He's
Yeah,
a
that's
guy.
awesome. And just a little side note to that too. Uh, on St. Clair this past Elite Series tournament, Floatzilla had a pretty good showing there in the top in the final championship Sunday, didn't they? We got Brian Smith in the top 10, and Joey there took home his second Blue Trophy of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that Joey happened to be using something I developed. Um, but I'll talk him into it next time. But but Brian definitely, he's real organic. Just goes out there and puts it on and makes it work.
Yeah,
And,
so I
and
said,
Brian knew. Don't fail me. Brian knew was right there in the top 22. I think he ended up
yeah,
13th or
yeah,
12th.
Yeah.
So all
I
three,
think he was in the top 15, wasn't he?
yeah, I think it was 13th.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
all three Floatzilla pros
yeah.
were up there.
Really
That's
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome showing.
So have you thought of like doing like a split tail or like antenna type deals or anything like that?
Did you see what Joe was throwing? He had something for that. I don't know. It was like a flat nose minnow or what? It was. It was definitely a Berkeley product. I know he's
Right.
sponsored by Berkeley too. Yeah, a paddle tail, a split tail.
Right.
He said all that can be done with balloon technology, and he said it's going to change the way those baits work, for the
Yeah.
better or for the worse. It's definitely going to change the way they look, and bass they like a little change, something a little different. So I think that's going. I
Yeah.
think it's going to work.
That's awesome.
So another question from Lanham Farms says if your house was on fire and you only had time to grab one box of your Floatzillas as you run out, which ones are you grabbing?
I'm going to grab the fire tails. I don't have too many of them. I'm grabbing the fire tails. I got maybe 6 packs, 8 packs of the black, and I have to wait like everybody else. I got to wait like 6, 8 weeks for the new
Yeah.
colors to come in. So I'm grabbing them. Matter of fact, I'm grabbing them right now because I'm going to go up to Thousand Islands and put them to work. Yeah, like an FLW.
uh, Gary and Hunter Bouchard said the question I always ask is what is your number one selling bait and color?
So I thought after Brian Schmidt got second in the classic with a chartreuse, like chartreuse shaped one like that, pretty much just like this blue one, but it's chartreuse. I thought that the web would just go crazy and just sell that shape, but not true. It seems like it's pretty much even. The smaller tails are outselling everything else, but it's not a color. It's not a
Yeah.
color. People are using them all. Now with the fire tail, the new one coming up, I think it's going to be the same way. I think it's not going to be the shape,
Yeah.
size. It's going to just be a mixed bag. People just want to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
Everybody throws
Yeah.
different baits. That's why everybody throws something different. But yeah, the smaller tails are definitely. Um, and I think if it was spring right now, the blue
Yeah.
down in Florida, threw it all down, we'd be all throwing blue.
oh yeah,
That's how Brian Schmidt and Brian New and Joey got together. I was only with Joey, and they all went fishing, and they had this blue tail, and they were fighting over the 3 or 4 packs I gave them. I had to actually send them some because I guess they had the Big O coming, and it got too weak or weak. They were down there before the Big O,
Yeah.
and yep, before Okeechobee, and they all wanted to have the tails.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Norman, will you run through the questions and let's have Doug pick out 2 winners,
All
and then
right.
we'll wrap it up.
All right. Brandon asks, how big? Hang on a minute. How big of a worm can you use the firetail on? Okay. Chris, how do you hold up? How does it hold up banging in the rocks? Mike Lindell, do you have a rattle Floatzilla? Bruce, does it fall slower or only work as a stand up on the bottom? Chris, will it work with a drop shot or on a drop shot? Mike Lindell, does it come in a UV? Mike Lindell again, does it counterweight the hook or just float the tail on the bottom or keep it on the surface? And John Pate, will it make a creature bait stand up? And again, my writing sucks, so I'd have to read my own writing. John Pate, do they come in different sizes? John Pate again, how many in a pack? John Pate again, what's the price range? Presley's dad, what Floatzilla do you go to build your confidence? And then here's another question. I didn't quite get the name, but Colin has it down there somewhere. We'll have to look back. What is your vision for the Floatzilla in the future? Jamie Jones, have you used it on a Carolina rig? And Jerry and Hunter, do you have color matching for the baits? Lannon Farms, if you had one to grab, what is your go-to? And the last question was Jerry and Hunter. What is your favorite color bait?
So I like the
Go for
durability question. The question is how they them around rocks and all. That's a
Yeah.
good question. I think that comes up a lot. So I like that question. I think we answered it. Saying that's real horrible. That's a real good question. And then I also like the question, which you didn't know who would actually call it in, but where's the future of Floatzilla? Because that's kind of why we're together on this podcast. Where's the future? Where are we going? What are we doing? What are we going to do? What are we going to do for the people that want to buy our product? What are we going to offer? And that's kind of what we want to put out there. That we want to say, if you have a favorite bait for a favorite lake, we can make it float. We can make it float correctly in the water and get you a few more strikes. Get to that bass at the boat.
So, Norman, that about the vision for Floatzilla, that one was Presley's dad.
Okay. Awesome.
So Chris and Presley's dad. I'm sorry, I forget your name. I can recognize them out. I spotted them out at the classic, but we will get those to you as soon as we get them in. And if y'all can message me with if you message me your address to where we can send it, but then we'll get it sent your way. And if next week, if we have them by then, his name's Lance. Presley's dad's name's Lance. We will, if we have them, Lance, by next week, which I don't know if we will or not, but if we do, we'll just give them to y'all when y'all if y'all come up to do the podcast, or if we do it the remote, we'll just mail them to you. So guys, this is Doug Reed with Floatzilla, and we sure did enjoy. I mean, we've had him on here talking for almost an hour and a half, and about how time flies when you're having fun and just talking fishing.
Yeah.
Make sure you go. I've got uh, the website on, so make sure you go to floatzilla.com and look them up. Get you some packs. Here in about 6 weeks, you're going to have more colors in that firetail. And I guarantee you that firetail is going to be money for you.
Yeah.
But Doug, we definitely appreciate you coming on here. We had looked like we had the highest that we had was about 680 of the viewers watching at one time. So hopefully we'll have quite a few of that 680 go over to Floatzilla and make some purchases for you.
Yeah, I'd
So
really like to see that. That'd be good. But
yeah,
I'm getting some baits out to you guys too, because you look like you're a little short-handed
yeah.
on the bait side.
Now I mean, we thoroughly enjoy throwing them, and uh, I actually, I found this one. That's why it still has four in it. I thought I just had this one that had two in it, and I had to hide. I had to hide this one because people were taking them out of my boat. And so, but yeah, guys, we thank y'all for watching, and hope that y'all have a blessed day. And Doug, thank you again for coming on and talking to us about Floatzilla and your product and stuff. You were very informative about the product and being able to explain to people what the purpose of each of the product is. So, but again, Doug, we want to thank you for coming on and spending an hour and a half with us just talking some fishing.
Thank you,
Doug,
guys.
thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man. Really do. Great
So,
product. Get out there and check them out at shopflootzilla.com.
yep. So, guys, we're going to get off here. Fat Boy's got to eat, and I've been up since 10 o'clock last night. I had to be at work at 10 o'clock last night. And so uh, I'm a little tired and I'm hungry. So, we're going to get off here. And again, we hope to see you out on the water and hope that you live the passion and don't forget your Floatzillas.
Live the
See you
passion,
guys.
guys and girls.